Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to Nino Kuni. Let's continue. So, we're going to now learn about metamorphosis, which one of our characters here is about to metamorphosize, which almost certainly you would assume it's Mighty. It would be a little silly if it was Limal. Um, and there doesn't really seem like there's anything that actually connects towards showing that something would metamorphosize. 13, level 13 seems a little weird, low. Um, so let's hear about this. Right, it's time to teach you about metamorphosis. This is boring, so listen careful. I'm not going to explain it again. If you look, you can see your familiar wants to metamorphose. Um, and for that one, you'll need one of these here. So we need some special orb. Far too many things in this game are starting to become orbs. Sundrop, is this some kind of treat? It's not just any old treat. Look, just try it out, will you? I'm bored of talking. Give it to that mite you've got there. Feed it to him in the creature cage, you mean? Okay, here goes. So Oliver even seems like he is now no longer having to lean on Drippy so much. Um, so yeah, all of a sudden in the creature cage, we have him labeled as metamorphable, and yet nothing else is labeled metamorphable. I think this is also probably a little unfair because unless I feed him this treat, which they may have secretly reduced his fullness so I can feed him the treat also. We didn't do any fights in the trials up until this point except for the big boss fight, which if Might had not been involved in that, or Mighty had not been involved in that, then that would have been weird. Uh, yeah, I wonder if we're going to be allowed to pick how he metamorphosizes, or maybe I've got it wrong, and instead of it being Mighty has 3 different ways he can evolve into, like a Pikachu Eve can evolve into all different variants of Eevee. Um, Maybe it is actually a 4-tier system, and he is going to metamorphose into the next thing, then the next thing, then the next thing. Um, for 3 evolutions in a base model is a little weird, but it does kind of seem like that's what this is going to do. Okay, yeah, we now see new species, and it is going to be Mighty Might, and then we can see that that branches off in 2 other directions. So actually there's going to be fewer characters than we really would think. Um, Interesting, experience to next level is going to be reset to a lower amount, and his level is going to be reset to a lower amount. Interesting. So it might be easier to capture new versions of a creature that's evolved if they start showing up instead of evolving your current one. Uh, Also, if you look at like his movement speed, attack speed, that doesn't change, but his attack, his defense, and all the other stats seemingly are going down. I don't know if that is because of all the equipment I have, or if that just means I'm gonna have to start over from scratch and feed him even more treats. I could have. It could be a case that feeding treats to low-level creatures does not make any sense unless you're just not going to evolve them. He will have new attacks, but he didn't even learn one trick here. There was one trick here that only unlocks at level 50, whereas this character's tricks unlock at level 37. Feels like it should warn you a little bit more before doing this. Mighty metamorphosed into Mighty Might. The number of different tricks Mighty can perform is in battle is increased by 1. That is definitely an improvement. I don't know how many tricks you need. Nino, look at my familiar. That's metamorphosis. When a familiar gets big enough, you can feed it special treats to make it change into a new version. Metamorphosis, got it. When familiars metamorphose, they get stronger, look different, and learn better tricks. Okay. They also get to gobble up more gems, meaning you can teach them even more tricks. What do they mean by gobble up gems? We haven't been feeding gems to them. The treat you need to feed it to a familiar to make it metamorphose depends on its sign. Something you never would have worked out on your own. Oh, and here's another priceless wisdom. Piece of priceless wisdom you don't deserve. When familiars metamorphose, they go back to level 1. But that doesn't mean they're back to square one. Once you train them up, they'll be much more powerful than they were before. Whether you metamorphose your familiars or not is up to you. Some idiots prefer to stick with what they've got. Do what you want, I don't care. Again, some of this dialogue, I know they're trying to write this character as being kind of childish and rude, but it does seem antithetical to making a friendly gameplay environment for kids or even adults to some level. Now you don't need anything else explaining, do you? You're fine with what I told you, right? Yes, Master Solomon. It is interesting that this game does not even put up a prompt to say, hey, would you like that explained again, since that was a lot. Many RPGs will do that. Like, it'll just say, did you understand that? Yes, no, and by default it would be like on the no, so if you're just mashing the A button you can't skip through it. Sometimes it's defaulted on the yes. Good, I hate explaining all that stuff. Anyway, if you want to hear all the boring details again, you can just ask the boring old telling stone you've got there. Did somebody say my name? I guess because we have the telling stone, we don't need them to prompt if we understood something. Eek. It is as his supremacy says. I can replicate this explanation in minute detail at any time you chose. You only need to ask again. Boring. You haven't changed. Anyway, now you know how it all works. You can go get out there and tame loads of familiars and make them metamorphose. Thank you very much, Your Honor. Ta, your supremitude. Right, where to next then? Can we go back to Al Mamoon quickly? I want to see how my father is getting on. Sure, we can ask him about the other great sages too. Goodbye, Master Solomon. Thanks for everything. Don't mention it. I mean it. Shut up and get lost. It is a little weird for Esther to want to go on a journey and then immediately want to go back to Al Mamoon and check on her father. As we walk back to Al Mamoon, we'll want to see if we can move a little bit faster now that we don't have the Shad following us. We also should discuss something that I probably should have realized a lot earlier. Yeah, it feels like he's moving maybe a little bit faster, but not super fast. The other point certainly we want to find out here is how often are we going to be able to capture familiars? Are we going to have to do 3, 4, 5 battles to get the opportunity to capture one familiar, or are we going to be able to capture a familiar almost every single time? Is there a specific amount of damage, overkill like damage we have to do to capture a familiar, or is it completely random? What's that rumbling noise, Ollie boy? It ain't your stomach, is it? Oh my goodness, look over there. Well, I wasn't expecting a volcano to erupt. Knickers, that ain't good. Oh no, Old Smoky is erupting. Old Smoky. There's a volcano over to the west of Al Mamoon. Proper huge it is. I'm no science, but I reckon it's the reason the whole region is so nice and warm. But it shouldn't be erupting. There's a massive great big boulder blocking the crater to stop that from happening. Jeepers. Do you think it has come loose somehow? After all these hundreds of years, not without some serious encouragement, it hasn't. There's nothing in the old stories about it ever having been dislodged before. Then it's an unprecedented disaster we've got on our hands, is it? Crikey, Al Mamoon could be in danger. We have to go to Old Smoky. What? We have to put the boulder back and stop the volcano from erupting. You're joking, ain't you? It's hot as flipping flip up there. Man, the desert is here, and by here is Arctic by comparison. We'll be burnt to cinders. But didn't you bring me here to save the world? We have to go. We have to save Al Mamoon. He's right. We passed the trials, didn't we? We can do this. Why, you little beauties. It's enough to make a grown fairy cry, seeing how far you've come. Alright, it's game. Let's save the day. Onward to Old Smoky. Alright, let's go. So, that way we go. This guy's chasing after us. We might as well do a battle. It does kind of... Let's see how much this guy hits for. Considerably less. We didn't have anything there that turned party so that we could summon people or capture a character. We should go in here and just make sure this guy has the weapons equipped. He does still have the weapons equipped. Interesting. Well, that's interesting that his attack is just so low. And I guess we should also check. Like, his familiarity and fullness is still the same. So I don't know if it's actually worth it to evolve things. So anyways, the thing that I should have kind of realized up until this point is that there definitely is an idea, I guess we're going towards the volcano, of a Kingdom Hearts clone in this game using the Studio Ghibli elements. Like, we are walking by here, we might as well see if there's anything to see. Doesn't seem like there really is. And we have enough gold, or we can buy weapons, I guess, but that's about it. Rashad is just not here. Okay. That would be treats. That would be... Is this weapons? Nope. That's... Weapons are here with the sword. We won't be able to probably even afford too much. Alright. Can't use that one. That would increase that one. That would decrease that one. That would... This would increase that one. It's almost certainly better. We'll buy that. Equip it to that guy. Let's see. We'll buy that one and give it to this one. And that probably puts me in a position where I don't have too much more I could buy. Buy one of these and one of these. And by doing this, I am kind of just making a fairly large assumption that I'm not ever going to get better weapons just randomly by fighting. You probably would get them if you grind it out quite a bit, but that's about it. Anyways, I keep getting distracted as I'm trying to talk here. The Kingdom Hearts concept at a certain level is that you start in a fantasy world. It's basically a kind of Final Fantasy Island world with Final Fantasy characters. Although saying a Final Fantasy world is kind of a silly statement to make, because like, what is a Final Fantasy world? Because what happens in Final Fantasy 7 versus 3 versus 15 are fairly different places. Final Fantasy is often more sci-fi than fantasy in some of its games. But you start off in a world that hasn't been really established, which would be the fantasy world that we're in here, to compare it to Ni no Kuni. And then eventually, I'm not even going to say quickly, eventually you teleport yourself to Disney worlds. And so there's an Aladdin universe, Aladdin world. There's a Winnie the Pooh world. There's a Toy Story world. There's all kinds of Pinocchio worlds. Cinderella worlds, I think. Like, I wouldn't even really know. But if you were going to try and make a clone of that with the Ghibli universes, that might be very cool as an idea. The problem, I think, that you run into is that in this example, Motorville would have had to have been one of the Ghibli movies universe. And we would have had to have run into some character from a Ghibli movie. And I just don't think Ghibli would have ever allowed that. Like, if anything, that's the only thing that even starts to make a little sense as to why Ghibli is involved in the animation here at all, is that they were trying to convince the Ghibli animation studio, instead of just making a few flat animations in the first 10 hours, and then we haven't seen anything else from that kind of animation style since. Maybe they were trying to court them to allow for them to use the gateway spell to go to a Spirited Away world, go to a My Neighbor Totoro world, and meet up with those characters. Probably meet up with those characters after the events of each of those movies. And probably would have been about as cool, if not even a few steps cooler than um, than what Kingdom Hearts did. And at a certain level, I wonder if I have to just play as Esther going forward if I want to capture creatures. It's either going to be that that's the case, or Esther, or it's just going to be incredibly rare when you do capture creatures. Because there's been like 5 fights already. Alright. We'll just play as her and let the other guy do his thing. It does feel like it's going to be slightly slower if you play as Esther with our with that character. It might just also be a case of it's going to be a while. Maybe we have to be at a higher level or something before we can start capturing monsters. There was a little bit of a frame rate hitch again. I suspect though that is just this engine more than my computer having trouble. But yeah, on the idea of Ni no Kuni potentially being like Kingdom Hearts and going to the 12 or so different worlds that would have been shown in Ghibli movies, that really would have never happened. Like, if anything, I guess Kingdom Hearts makes it feel like there is a possibility that something like that could happen, when in reality even Kingdom Hearts should have never really happened. We got some spicy seeds. Yeah, I definitely feel like this game has just too much texture and particle physics for its engine. You could definitely use a better engine and make a better version of this game. But we're already playing the remastered, and clearly level 5, as the developers of this game, just didn't really have that level of skill. Alright, so if you knock something down, it was supposed to get back up and have the hearts around it. And we're not really seeing that happen. So I kind of just assume it's not happening. This is another kind of dungeon area, although now it's zoomed out as an overworld where you're probably going to have to just fight your full way through it. Let's see. Cut Loose not doing a lot of damage. With Esther effectively doing whatever she wants, it didn't feel like there really was a tactics to say don't use mana. Audio messing up again. You definitely also run into the problem where I guess we can't cross this, or we're gonna have to cast a spell to cross this. Even in the Kingdom Hearts idea, like, oh, we have a bridge spell. uh, the whole Kingdom Hearts idea really ruins your potential nostalgia for Disney uh, Disney movies as much as it might build on the nostalgia, because while you do have Goofy and Donald Duck, you turn like um, Goofy into a knight and you turn Donald Duck into a wizard, and you're setting events and telling stories that just are not really these events and stories you would expect or see in a lot of the Disney worlds. Alright, we do have Esther. Serenade. You would almost think that taming a sunshine would end your fight. I'm about to die. Alright. Come on. I want to send out this guy. So we now know the Phoenix Feather doesn't work. We'll lose 27 guilders, that's fine. Let's just continue. Did we end up with the character though? No, we didn't. Well, I don't see a value in continuing if all it's gonna let me keep is my XP and the grindiness, but I didn't lose a lot there, certainly. There, again, a shadow texture just causing the game to decide to be a little low when the frame rate drops. Like, there's... Let's see. I will say the controller vibrating also has not played any role in the game. I felt it vibrate like once or twice and that's it. Good news is we did see the hearts appear while we were fighting as Oliver, so we know we don't have to just always play as Esther if we want to capture them. It is an interesting thought, certainly, to give different characters and a almost completely different gameplay style based on the different characters you're playing as. Whereas, so if you just wanted to be a if you wanted to just be a violent knock 'em out type player and not collect any of the monsters, you play as Oliver. And if you want to be a obsessive compulsive collectathon player, you play as Esther. At a certain level, I wouldn't be surprised if some Pokemon games are fairly playable with just the Pokemon that the story gives you, and you don't really need to capture any others. It may very well have been a case that Motorville was supposed to just be one of many locations. Right. Esther, Serenade. And this will work differently now because this will be the only one. So that should end the fight. Hmm. Keep the small fry. Now, he is just going to be here. Next time we get somebody, it'll be in one of the 3 reserves. So we can only really capture like 3 more. And I don't know if they automatically would get thrown into the reserve after that, or if you can only capture 3 things at a time and then you have to go back to a city and deposit the 3 reserves you have. The problem... Oops. Come on, Esther. I can't change. So you have conflicting services there, certainly, where if you get the gold dot, it locks you into a fatality move, for lack of a better term, and you can't counter out of that to capture something.
Here we go.
This also creates a weird situation where there is an argument, certainly, to collecting multiple copies of each of the characters. Like, if you wanted to potentially go crazy and have a level 99 version of Mighty, and then Mighty Might, and then the 2 other evolutions of Mighty Might, that is potentially having to have 4 different versions of this one character. And certainly that is where you get up to the numbers being in the 300s and 400s. Although we still aren't being given a lot of variety as far as enemies in this, in each region. So it could be as little as 1 extra hour of running around a region to try and capture at least 1 copy of each character, or even 4 copies of each character. The bridge was still there, which was good to know, I suppose. You know, I should be saving. I guess I can save in the overworld. And I have to blame the fact that I've forgotten that I can save in the overworld to the fact that you can't save outside of the overworld. And we've spent a lot of time outside of the overworld. This definitely is not the environment like you would want to spend the most time in. Same is true for Pokemon. Yeah, there is that overworld map in Pokemon, and particularly the original games look pretty awful when you are in the overworld map, and are way more interesting when you are actually in a dungeon gym fight or something similar. Interesting, we get a ding 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 when we get the spicy seeds because they're part of a quest, but we don't get the ding a ding ling. Otherwise. And we saw in the trailer there was a point where we were crawling around a fiery dungeon, so I assume that this is where we're going to see that action happen. we may very well, in the teaser trailer on the main menu, have seen a large percentage of what is actually in the whole game. Although, in all fairness to Ni no Kuni, I don't really know what would be in a Dragon Quest game. I wouldn't be surprised if I were to play the most recent Dragon Quest game to find that there's a lot of very similar looking fields and a lot of very similar looking cities and a lot of just walking from point A to point B. And it may very well just be a case that some JRPG games just don't level you up that fast and just require you to fight and random encounters and fight monsters way more. This game, at least on easy mode, is not causing me to do that. Almost every fight we have something going at least halfway up to a new level, which would indicate that potentially somewhere between 200 fights would be all you would need. 200 and maybe 300 fights would be all you need to get a single character all the way up to a level 99, which maybe it stops at even level 50, who knows. But yeah. So this is Old Smoky Jeepers. The whole mountain is on fire. Wow, I've always seen it from town, but I've never been this close before. We don't stand there gaping. It ain't exactly what you might call safe around here. That's why people in fairies tend to steal clear. And anyway, anywhere else like give a wide berth, you can bet beasties will flipping love. Brace yourself, we're in for a bumpy ride. Watch out for lava, Oliver. I doubt even a wizard can survive falling into that. Don't worry, I'll be real careful. And if we all work together, we'll make it through this, just like we made it through the trials. Alright, Oliver is getting maybe too much confidence for beating the trials, which were frankly a little simple. That's inspirational. Tidy. Let's crack on then, shall we? Don't stop till you reach the top. This is another great example of like a kid's story going kind of off the rails and becoming unrealistic. They can take up to 400 little blighters into their care. Great Sage's Secret. 3 jumbo sun drops, 3 jumbo sun drops, 3 jumbo moon drops. Alright. Alright. So which characters are metamorphosable at the moment? This one is. So we probably should do this one. And let's see. He would use this. Nope. This. Nope. Moon sign. Planet sign. Star sign. What sign is this guy? I guess he's sun sign. Alright. So the colors don't really match, and the symbol doesn't really make sense. Oh, I can't do any of these at the moment because these are final form evolutions. So you need a different... You don't need jumbo versions, you need the regular versions. Okay. Well, that's going to heavily encourage you to just like once again evolve, but I think you probably do want to stagger your evolutions so you don't have a whole bunch of level 1 things at the same time. Yep.
Let's do it.
It is an odd catch-22 that's rolling around in my head, in that I can't help but feel like Ni no Kuni would have been a slightly better game if it hadn't wasted resources trying to involving Ghibli and had just made a game that looked somewhat like this art style and just said, yes, we were inspired by many different influences, Ghibli being one of them. It's not like Ghibli could really sue them for that, but in Japanese culture that may be they may still get such a negative backlash. I guess this is a dungeon. Anyways, so it may very well have been to save face that they involved Ghibli in the first place. Yeah, this again feels like it's trying to do a lot of visual effects, and that looks really, really bad. I can't collect that at the moment. We need a stronger wand. And the fact that we know eventually we will get a stronger wand also kind of points towards not wasting a lot of time in these dungeon areas. We're gonna have to come back to all of them a second time. Alright. Attack. There probably should be a familiar trading ground. Like, now that I have a planet drop, that's still the wrong one. I don't know why some of these are not metamorphosable, though. Like, what makes Limo not metamorphosable? Moondrop. Seems like we're going to be getting these evolution stones fairly often. And so maybe we'll sell them or trade them if we start having a ton of them extra. But yeah, in my mind, it does feel like they should have focused more on writing a better story and just making this game, I think, a lot more kid-friendly. Like, I could definitely excuse somewhat simplistic narratives and concepts if this was a really kid-friendly game. It just totally does not come off as actually being kid-friendly because it's got too big of words in the English localization. It's a little too grindy even on easy mode. It has a unforgiving system of lack of checkpoints. I kind of wonder if maybe there's perhaps some tradition that is holding back JRPGs too, in the sense that if somebody worked on Final Fantasy 1 and in Final Fantasy 1 there weren't any checkpoints, they may say, well, if it's good enough that Final Fantasy 1 didn't have checkpoints, let's not put any checkpoints in Final Fantasy 15 many decades later. That would be silly, certainly, but some of that seems to actually happen in Japanese culture and society. progress in Japanese business in particular can move at a glacier's pace. But the problem with saying that I think they should have just focused on writing their own story and making this game as good as it could be, eliminating the Ghibli element, is that Ni no Kuni 2 came out and it really, I don't think, had any Ghibli involvement, and it didn't seem to blow people out of the water either. So they potentially have just capped themselves, and there may just be a maximum as far as how good you can make a Japanese RPG game until you start to really change things drastically. And that is probably where the Dark Souls gameplay style, where each enemy placement is very much thought through, and each enemy is either a mini boss in itself, or like you in Dark Souls, a lot of characters are straight up bosses. There are a lot more bosses. They're named. They have a lot more backstory to them, and they have a lot more life to them. And the struggle to beat each boss becomes its own thing, instead of the almost guarantee that you'll succeed in a random battle in a standard Japanese RPG or RPG game. But even when you have just a skeleton randomly placed somewhere, it is in the same place always, and you kind of know where that skeleton is going to be. Alright. Flame robes. We'll see if that Phoenix feather, sandwich. This isn't setting us up particularly well because it does point out that I missed an area. Well, whatever. The flame robes is resistance to flame. Can we equip it? Not on that screen. So one guy's in the reserve. Well, the problem here, I guess, is you would have to just see who can wear what. It's going to become a nightmare scenario, certainly. And I doubt I'm going to have enough items for it to start to make sense to equip things that are just going to end up in the reserves. So I'm not going to equip anything to him. On top of which, we also have one more space for a trick on him. And then potentially a bunch of other things that we could be using, and I'm gonna by default just assume that any offensive trick is probably better than a non-offensive trick. And I am seeing that the number of tricks seems to be fairly limited. Um, they never really tout in Pokemon games how many like different types of attacks there are, as far as like
Let's do it.
Shock, Thunderbolt, Steel Tail, to name some of the Pikachu attacks. Like, because Thunderbolt, Shock, things like that are almost certainly used by other Pokemon other than just Pikachu. And so there's probably a lot of repetition. I wouldn't be surprised for the 400 to 600 Pokemon that exist if there is barely 200 different types of attacks. I really wouldn't be surprised if it's actually closer to 150, and that the attacks haven't evolved much, or they haven't added a bunch of attacks as they've added different generations of Pokemon games. That's the way we came from. This is the way we're going. We know what's going to happen here, certainly. It's going to be the same old pattern.
Here we go.
We will run into a fairly difficult boss character we'll have to fight. And if we had a Boogly Boo to capture, if it decided to have one of those characters have hearts above his head, would it automatically know to go to the one we haven't captured already and haven't collected already? Or are there going to be scenarios where we are offered duplicates far more often than new characters?
Here we go.
This is in potentially creating a new game and being inspired by Pokemon at some point. This is a point where you could speed up the process by saying you can only have one of each character. Once you get one of each character, you can then always summon a clone or a copy of that familiar. That would definitely speed up the process. And when you're talking magic, that would make some sense. Right, so this guy is still level 1, so he is not leveling up. And we'll go ahead and evolve this guy. Because why not? He's not metamorphosable at the moment. We could move these characters around. It probably wouldn't be a bad idea. Let's see if we can metamorphose this one too. The problem with this is, and Pokemon makes the same mistake, I think, is that there isn't a counter argument. That there isn't a point here that says you really should keep some of your monsters, some of your Pokemon unevolved. It is a complete afterthought of what you can do. And that didn't open any new trick spots, it feels like. Which is weird. Yeah. Where it would have been nice, since you're starting over again in this game, to have say to say, hey, you don't have to evolve them. If you don't evolve them, they may become very powerful in the long run. So, while evolving or forcing evolution may be a shortcut to quick victory, it won't have the most natural increase in power. In a lot of ways, evolving, metamorphosing is an analogy to cheating, using steroids or something in a sports game. It may benefit you in the short run, but it's going to hurt you in the long run. And there should probably be a system to that. And if you're not going to create a system to that, then it should just be straight up you're forced to evolve like Pokemon, and then the whole idea of the Everstone in Pokemon should just be eliminated. Also, if you force things to evolve, then you may not really have to change their appearance. You could just have skins. A more modern mobile, like, free-to-play game would definitely allow you to evolve up a character and then use the old skin. They might try and charge you money or premium currency for that, but it would definitely be a possibility. So, if in the Pokemon games you could keep Pikachu looking like Pikachu, but he's actually level 100 and he's actually evolved to something like Raichu, or I don't know if there's even an evolution above Raichu. That would be interesting. Let's see, Esther says, what the? That was one huge trimmer? Oh, knickers, knickers, knickers. It's funny her now that there's a lady present that Drippy is basically cussing. What's wrong, Mr. Drippy? The big one is on the way. I can feel it in my lantern. The old boy's about to blow. You can really tell? Of course I can. I'm Lord High, Lord of the Fairies, ain't I? I don't know if he ever even introduced himself to Esther. Volcano eruption sensing's child place for the likes of me, Mon. Then we have to hurry. We have to stop it. You're not wrong, Mon. We'll be toast if we don't. Come on. To the top with you. You can see that the flaming plants in this area are being placed for lighting.
We can do this.
Even at that, this is a fairly dark looking area. I don't know if there would have been a great way to avoid it looking dark. We really are just getting massive amounts of food. They basically look like candles on a plant. And they're being used to indicate directions to go. Yep. And I guess you couldn't have had a mountain without lava. But that doesn't really excuse the lava looking so terrible.
Watch this.
These ruffians, we're mostly seeing them in the other area. I wonder if we'll get an indication of when something becomes metamorphosable from that screen. We may, we may not. Also might be that the monkey in particular is kind of a unique character, and as such well, I can't equip this. It's not particularly the best weapon. So, do I have anybody? Like, this one I shouldn't be able to equip anything fire from the looks of it. So this one really should have the burning blade equipped to it, because that's gonna match this character class. That being said, I may never ever actually use that character in a fight. So we know there's 6 different element classes, not character classes. So a properly balanced team would potentially want to focus towards that, but I'm going to potentially have to decide fairly quickly how that really is going to be built up, or how a team would be built up, because you ideally would want to stick with a team for a decent amount of time, if not the back half of a game, of the entire game. Learning a new trick. RPG games definitely are trying to trick the player into experiencing a lot of text and reduce the amount of actual animation and interactive, more video parts of the video game. I mean, it's not as bad as a visual novel, which is probably, most visual novels I'd say are about 98% text and 2% visuals and audio. And sometimes they have interactivity, sometimes they don't. Most of the time they do have some level of interactivity as far as choosing what you're going to say and how that branches off to different endings, assuming the game has different endings. But you know, the just vast number of names of characters and attacks and going into menus, this is a problem I often see with like Chinese games too, which are always a little bit behind the times, is that you'll see a lot of Chinese mobile games that are just saying a ton of text in Chinese too, mind you. So they're using Chinese symbols, which say a lot more than spelling something out in English letters or Latin letters would. So you just really can tell that the vast majority of it would be reading. And I guess it's one thing that people in the United States and Westerners are not super fans of, is reading. We've hit a point, I feel, where fighting these characters is a little annoying, because yes, it's leveling me up, but I really wouldn't want to have to capture those characters again. But who knows, there may very well be a case where we just start trading and we may capture the same familiars over and over again, and it may not matter. Of course, unlike Pokemon, this game does not, as far as I know, connect to any servers or connect to any other game players. So any trading that would occur is going to occur between non-playable characters and you.
Watch this.
That may have just been the halfway point up to the mountain. I wasn't really expecting to run into any more random encounters. I don't think we have captured that one yet, and we might as well do it anyways. Seems like you cannot fail. Right. And if you do choose to serenade and capture a monster, a familiar, it puts you in a weird position as far as like where you put you in a weird position as far as what you were doing before that point, and then you're just going to be in control of Esther, and Esther's attack is just not going to be particularly high, I think, ever. So, freezing, lava, we're going this way.
Here we go.
This does feel like these dungeons are getting bigger, and it could certainly get grindy. I don't think there's really a way to be super generous about it either. There's definitely some bait and switch going on this game. Once you got into that 10-hour point, all of a sudden you stopped. Well, we can try frostbite. Let's see if that works. Yeah, it definitely feels bait and switchy. It definitely feels like the game is going to get more grindy and kind of annoying. Let's see if bridge is what we need to have happen here. Let's see if puppet strings work. And then form familiar stopped working. Quick growth. Rejuvenate. Secret ingredient. Broom. Okay, there's no way to reach that then. We still need some kind of levitation ability or skill to get to these far off treasure chests. Unlike most RPGs, if it just didn't have these major transitions, you could abridge this experience, you could make it shorter fairly quickly. Like, if someone were to simply mod into the game eliminating that part, that would save a few seconds each fight. And if the game just let you, here's that cutscene. If the game let you just fight while in the dungeon instead of going to a whole fight area. Is Drippy's mouth open? I guess it is. Whoa, that was a big one. Knickers. If we don't stop the old boy erupting soon, we can kiss our sorry behinds goodbye. Then let's stop it. That's easier said than done. Ollie boy, if my seventh sense is to be trusted, we've got Knickers. 3 minutes. 3 flipping minutes. By crikey, only 3. 3, man. 3. So we've got 3 minutes. I'll take it. Hang on. That's no time at all. Are you absolutely sure? Do I look like I'm messing about? 3 minutes. I said it. And 3 minutes. 3 short minutes to stop this thing erupting. So I almost believe that there will actually be a 3-minute timer here. I suppose, though, you undercut any actual feeling of actual danger when more than likely Oliver could just cast Gateway at any point and teleport back to Motorville. Of course, if you cast Gateway and teleported back to Motorville, casting Gateway again might bring you back into an exploded mountain. So it might trap Oliver and Esther into the in Motorville, which Esther wouldn't be happy about that, but at least she'd be alive. Don't worry, Mr. Drippy, we can make it. I know we will. Come on, we have to hurry. Alright, so yeah, this is the whole section that we saw in the tutorial or in the trailer of walking around doing something very different from what we have done up until this point. And we can see at the top there is a timer counting, so we have 150 seconds. So when we go into a fight now, I assume time would stop moving. Otherwise we are potentially going to be killed fighting. It'd be very easy to do 3 minutes. We've already got one of these. This comes to a different system, certainly, as far as potentially like potentially freeing a character might potentially create some familiarity increase or stat up increase on a character you already have. And again, if you were going to optimize for this since you're starting over, instead of in Pokemon where there is a very small percentage of players who would actually try to have multiple Pidgeys or Pokemons or Pikachus in their team, if the game just said, no, you can only have one of your character, but you'll free the other ones, and your current character, your current Pikachu, will learn the experience from the other ones, that would be fine. The idea of releasing and not just capturing everything is an ideal message, certainly, to send out anyways, because you do have a lot of weirdness already around games like this where you're basically dog fighting. You're capturing wild dogs or animals of some sort and fighting them against each other and training them up to be better fighters. That is particularly why I enjoy like Pokemon Snap better, is that it is less of a violent aspect. Not that I want to see all violence leave video games by any means. I'm more than happy to see violence in video games, but there is something kind of uniquely odd around having monsters and familiars. And you can bend over backwards and say they like fighting, or say that they're Digimon and that they're actually digital constructs designed to fight, and that they grow and evolve through fighting. That's fine and all, but it still doesn't quite feel as good as it could. Of course, going the other way and having a animal breeding game might be a little bit weird too, and that is another aspect in Pokemon, is that at a certain point they do introduce Pokemon breeding. Yeah, in modern times, you really would not you really would not ever get away with making a game like Pokemon. It would just be too many people who would complain about it. Too many PETA-like agencies putting out complaints. I guess I should also mention that the reason why the comparisons to Kingdom Hearts, which this game definitely could have been like Kingdom Hearts, is so prevalent at the moment, is because they just announced that they were going to make a Kingdom Hearts 4 for its 25th anniversary. I seriously doubt Ni no Kuni will have a third or fourth game by the time it hits its 25th anniversary.
Watch this.
I think part of the problem with Ni no Kuni 2 is that you aren't just continuing the journey with Oliver. You start playing as a different character, and I think it's very much that they just kind of wrapped up the story in the first game and weren't really expecting that they would get a sequel. And that's another problem certainly with JRPGs, is that there are JRPGs out there that are standalone experiences, and they might be shorter and better, but there is definitely at least the temptation to instead focus on long-running series, or at least series that are perceived as being long-running series like Final Fantasy. In reality, if you played Final Fantasy 1, that doesn't mean you have to play Final Fantasy 2 through 15, but it, to a layman, feels like that might be the case. And even when you see games like Mass Effect in the West, there is some weirdness there. Oh, I thought the game locked up there, but it just paused everything for an action. Did my character just die? No, my health looks fine. We have 90 more seconds. Really not giving you time to look over the edge and see the view, which is probably for the better.
Let's do it.
There definitely are more RPGs that go in more different directions. My decision to play Ni no Kuni was what seems to have been based on a false assumption of it looking like it was more kid-friendly, but it's not quite there. And that's definitely what I would look for, is games, Japanese RPGs or RPGs in general, that are going to be shorter and are going to be a little bit easier. And that's probably a mistake. I probably just need to man up, for lack of a better term, and play some of the bigger ones that are going to just be big time commitments. And I don't edit my footage just because it would triple the amount of time I'd have to spend making content and stop me from playing as much video games as I would like to. But I could certainly see, if I'm getting to a point where I don't have anything to say and I'm just mindlessly grinding on an RPG game like this, where playing some content off screen. I have in the past played some content off screen. This would be kind of hard to do that, though. I would have to specifically run into a boss battle that I absolutely am certain I could not defeat, and then run around a field that I've already shown for like an hour doing more battles. And that just may not be necessary, really, on easy mode at least, because these dungeons are forcing you into so many fights. There definitely is an alternate universe version of this game where you could have modded out all of the random monster fights. Yeah, that's probably how you would do it as far as being abridged. You would say, you would edit out all the random encounters completely. You would have only the boss fights or very specific fights placed in specific spots. When you fought a specific character, you would always capture that specific character as a familiar, and that would be the only time you fought that specific character. You would get a ton of XP from every boss fight, or every fight, so there would be absolutely no repetition. you very well may just end up going to a new city and having more creatures handed to you as a pile. Um, but yeah, that kind of abridged, shortened experience is really what I'm looking for and have yet to really find. Nearly there, Mon. Seems like as good a place as any to stop the old drippy clock. Let's see now. There we go. But I thought you said we had only 3 minutes. I distinctly remember you saying that several times, in fact. Well, yes, I did, but it was more of an estimate. See, to give you something to work towards, like, what? But I guess it helped us get here quicker, huh, Mr. Trippy? Exactly, that's what I meant, ain't it? So, once again, Drippy is proving himself to be a liar. It would be frankly surprising if there isn't a point in this story where Oliver and Esther really just realize Drippy is a liar and get rid of him as a mascot character. He's outlived his usefulness at this point anyways. It'd be a little harsh to kill him off, but certainly leaving him somewhere with the other fairies would be called for. You made us think that, never mind. I suppose at least we're here now. We better go and have a look at the crater. Come on. Yep, that was insulting. Alright. Might as well just save this. I think we also need to probably drop off at least one familiar. And since we know they're not getting XP, we might as well drop off another familiar. And since we're doing that, we might as well just drop off all the familiars. Yeah. If we wanted to release one, we could do that later. But I just don't know if we're actually going to end up trading or selling familiars. It doesn't feel like there's going to be a lot of people that have familiars to trade with. It's not that kind of world as far as like a Pokemon world. It was surprising even Esther had familiars. And we can see a big rock that I guess we're going to probably fight to knock down in what looks like a big fight arena. On top of Old Smoky at last. Wow. It's like the end of the world. Crikey, look at that boulder, man. It's just like he said. It came unstuck. How the heck did that happen? Wait, look, what's that? It would be a little surprising if we're gonna fight Shadar. Also be a little surprising if we have to go back to Motorville.
You came, boy. As I knew you would.
Is that
Crikey is flipping Shadar!
Shadar? Huh?
I have a little trial of my own for you.
So you can see his face still being hidden. I still lean towards the thought that he is probably your father, or a corrupted version of your father. Moltan, Lord of Lava. So the question certainly here is going to come down to how much damage are we doing? Do we need to be doing spells? Pulse. Pulse does 39. Frostbite does 44. Alright, so we want to do Frostbite because that uses less magic. Even big beasties like this have a weak spot. Oliver, try and get around the back and attack its tail. Right. Wait, well. Spell. Frostbite. We don't have anything else we can target other than him with a spell, so. spell, frostbite. I wouldn't be surprised if we can't capture this guy, but I also wouldn't be surprised if you absolutely can capture him. We are very far away, and our frostbite spell works from this distance, so we're very safe, at least temporarily. And Esther's health is different than my health. That was a decent amount of damage. Should have defended for that. Alright. So now's the time to send this guy back out. It seems to kind of just do damage to everybody, and it doesn't feel like there's quite enough time. Right. Let's provision, sandwich, this. And while we're at it, let's just provision. Let's see, strong coffee 30 XP on the strong coffees or the iced coffees. Go with a strong coffee. Now there is definitely an argument that kids should not be drinking coffee ever. And Esther is down. Can we win, or do we need to use a phoenix feather? Well, with Esther down, we can't serenade anyways. We've got a phoenix feather to spare. So using a phoenix feather on her brings things back into play. Hopefully that doesn't kill her again. Yeah, all I'm really doing is using Esther as a distraction. But you probably do want to keep her alive. I have no idea what spell he just did. Was that Pulse? So notice you see the cutscene there. That pretty much means you couldn't have captured that guy. But yeah, keeping her alive probably gives her more XP than if she was dead. That's not really a major experience though. That didn't feel great as a fight. What's funny is we've only gone an hour and a half, and it feels like it's been longer than that. The smoke has stopped. I think we fixed it. You did it, Oliver. You've saved Alma Moon. Yeah, but what about Shadar? Don't go getting ahead of yourself, man. You're nowhere near ready to face him yet. Didn't you feel the power coming off of him? Terrifying it was. I was so worried he was going to steal a piece of my heart again. But he just sort of left us alone, didn't he? Well, I wouldn't say that exactly. He was the one controlling the fiery garden. And you can bet this whole mess was thanks to him and all. I wonder if Shadar cannot steal a piece of Oliver's heart. You really think all that was Shadar's work? Of course it was. Who else would do something so flipping rotten? I reckon we had a lucky escape. It still definitely feels like none of them even know the White Witch exists. I had no idea. Thank you so much for sealing the volcano back up, Oliver. But you don't need to thank me, Esther. Of course I do. Without you, my hometown could have been destroyed. You saved the people of Alma Moon from disaster. But Esther, you weren't exactly standing on the sidelines, were you? Don't let old pure heart here take all the glory. I suppose I did help a little, thank you. Well, shall we head back to Almoon? I want to tell my father all about our adventure. So let's go and tell him how brave you are. And now the game is going to straight up give us reset points that the game has not bothered to tell us even existed. So, like, my first instinct would have been that you could have walked over here and gone up further in that direction, but I guess you can't. So I imagine you just walk in this way and they would tell you something. Was there one of these before? Like 5 hours ago? Maybe there was and I just don't remember it. It does make a lot of sense for dungeons to have reset points though. Like, I'm not going to complain about them existing by any means. Here we can see these characters are now afraid of me. And it does seem like they are just hard programmed to be afraid of me more than I am just overpowered. And that's why they're afraid of me. But it might be that I'm just overpowered and they're afraid of me because of that. Like, being even 1 or 2 levels above may be enough to send them running. And it does feel like you might be getting slightly diminishing returns as far as your rewards now. Okay. This one. We don't have the right thing to evolve with. We have a decent amount of XP. It would kind of make sense for things to run away if you've already collected the characters too. But you wouldn't really know if you've collected all the characters anyways, because, well, it shows you one creature, you just don't know who the other creature would be, or the potential even third creature would be. Like this little bighorn I think we've collected, but I know we haven't collected the sunshine. The game kind of abruptly loses interest in you grinding once you've beaten the boss of an area. Which that feels perhaps a little unbalanced. It would feel maybe a little bit better if there were half as many fights on the way up to the boss battle was easier, and then there was the same amount of fights after the boss battle. I assume also that Esther and Oliver are not going to ever go down any kind of romantic path. Most Ghibli movies don't have anything like that. Almost all the characters in Ghibli movies are written as prepubescent children that don't have any romantic interest. It is very much, at most, puppy love that you'll run into. And I don't think it even happens that often in Ghibli movies. I'm trying to think. Yeah, you may have to go to one of the more obscure Ghibli movies, like Only Yesterday, which is an old woman, like an adult woman, not really an old woman, looking back on her past, just reminiscing. There might be some kind of puppy love character in that. But Spirited Away, there's no love interest. And My Neighbor Totoro, there's no love interest. Princess Mononoke almost would feel like there might be a love interest, but I don't think there actually was. Yeah. I just don't think Ghibli movies go in that direction, where, in comparison, most of the Disney movies do go in that direction. You have, like, Ariel from The Little Mermaid in love with the prince, and replace half of the Disney princesses being in love with the prince, a different prince. Yeah, it wasn't until probably 5 to 10 years ago that they stopped making Disney movies where it wasn't a princess in love with a prince as being at least the B plot, if not the A plot of a story. Mr. Rashad, you have returned. Does that mean you have completed the trials? I suspect this might be the last time we ever see Rashad, and probably for the better. Yes, sir, and Master Solomon taught us a whole bunch of neat stuff. I'm happy for you, but there's no time for celebrations. The city is in grave danger. The volcano is. Don't worry, little pretty head, about that. Your sage ship. We've sorted that out too while we were at it. You, but how? It's quite a story, father, you see. ... Well, I applaud them not actually having her explain the whole thing. So, not only did you succeed in completing the trials, you also prevented the volcano from erupting. That's quite a tale. It would seem that your potential is even greater than I had imagined. But for Shadar himself to have appeared, it seems his game has entered its next phase. I must look into this. Thank you, Mr. Rashad, sir. We should get back to our journey. Do we have to, Ollie boy? I'm flipping knackered, man. Can't we stop here for a bit and have a nice banana or two? There's no time, Mr. Drippy. Other towns could be in danger. Mr. Rashad, I need to learn more magic. I need more powerful spells. You have proven your ability. You overcome the trials and saved the city. I have nothing more to teach you. You will learn more, Oliver, but you will learn much of it for yourself as your journey continues. I will? Yet there is a limit what can be learned without instructions. Very well. You must visit my fellow great sages. You must learn from what they have to teach you. He's right, Ollie boy. Shadar is one tough cookie. You'll need all the help you can get if you're going to beat him. But where can we find the other great sages? Alicia, she who once fought alongside me, fell foul of Shadar, and her soul was sealed away. But there are two more. There's useful somewhere, eh? Tall sage face, fat lot of use you are. I do not know their exact whereabouts, but I believe one of them resides in the city of Hamelin, which I suspect is full of pigs, on the continent of Autumnia, which I suspect is going to be an autumn-like environment. Hamelin, huh? Thank you, Mr. Rashad, sir. Autumnia, that's far away to the east. You'll need a boat to get there. So you'll need to go via Castaway Cove. It's the closest port. To reach it, you must cross the desert to the south of here. Cross the desert to the south, huh? Is it far away? Don't worry, Oliver. I'll show you the way. Esther, you mean? Yes, I'm coming with you. We travel together from now on. But are you sure? I thought she had already said she wanted to do that, but I guess maybe it hadn't been set in stone that she was going to stay for the entire game. Of course I am. We're both fighting for the same thing, aren't we? And you already know how helpful having me around can be. You bet I do. But Mr. Rashad, is this alright if Esther comes with us? I know my daughter. There's no stopping her when she sets her mind on something. I have a little choice but to agree. Esther, you must make yourself useful to Oliver. You must not become a burden to him. Of course I won't. I'm a great sage's daughter. Truly you are. Then as decided, Oliver. Please take care of my daughter. Yeah. Kind of feels like you just were... the father just sold his daughter's hand in marriage. I will, sir.
Look after me, won't you, Oliver?
Yep. That was an odd animation, certainly, because you just don't see that level of interaction, actually touching each other as the characters through any of the other cutscenes. So that definitely stands out as her just being overtly friendly. And you can't help but notice that she's a little bit taller, and she's probably the same age, or near the same age as Oliver, so the idea that Oliver would have to look after her is kind of silly, but it is in the backdrop of this whole adventure being kind of silly, in that you have a couple of 10-year-olds, or what it seems like 10-year-olds, going on an adventure to eventually fight what people seem to know as the most evil and most dangerous person on the planet. It just does not really make sense. Oh, and I'm sure you will too, Drippy. Welcome aboard. Oh, I'm an afterthought, is it, Rydo? I can see how this is going to work out. So I suppose you do brighten the place up a bit. Go on then. The more the merrier, I suppose. Well, Father, I had to be going. I had better be going. That's Esther talking. Yeah. If I was a better voice actor, or any kind of voice actor, I would try to do voices for each of the characters and probably would get it wrong all the time. For a second there, I thought that was Oliver calling Rashad father, as in they just got married. And it is worth pointing out that a less westernized, localized version of the story would totally exist, where Rashad would say, "You're now married to her," and they would just straight up have a marriage and say, well, in Al Mamoon, marriages are allowed as long as the father has permission at any age, or most people in Al Mamoon get married at their age. Yeah, the Japanese would totally be willing to go in that direction, whereas the Western United States people would find that weird and off-putting. And we may still have something like that. Like, I wouldn't be surprised, since we know in the trailer that the third character looks a little bit older and taller. I wouldn't be surprised if the third companion character does kind of lecherously chase after Esther for comedic effect. Take care, daughter. May the ancients watch over you. Thank you, Mr. Rashad. We'll come visit you again real soon, I promise. Okay. We didn't do this one. We may have the ingredients for this one. Yeah, we may be able to do that one, but we have to talk to the other people first. We have not defeated how many? Boneheads. So there are boneheads roaming the desert. Here's this guy. Hmm. Just jump through all of this. Old tree at the foot of the volcano. We need to find this manuscript again. We have a lot of resources that a lot of gold that we need to spend. It probably is worth it to go. It's probably worth it to go around and try and do everything. We've got another guy's quest. So this guy may be our familiar trader. Yes, but why do you ask? I was thinking of finding that you're just the person I've been waiting for. Excellent. And how excellent will we find that? What are you on about, Spacey? I think you'll find that my name is in fact Derwin, and that I am a highly respected researcher in the field of familiarology. I'm currently in the area collecting important data on creatures that can be tamed here in more arid regions of the world. Oh, you are you? And don't tell me. You're too much of a wimp to go after them yourself, and you want us to help you, is it? Precisely. Would like to offer you an exciting opportunity to assist in some groundbreaking research by taming certain creatures and bringing them to me for study. Alright. Good. I hope you won't let me down. Which creatures do you need us to tame? Let me consult the list, yes. Let's see. A species feature said to resemble a bunch of unripe bananas, and one that wears a purple turban. Alright. And you cannot study them if you're sitting in the familiar retreat, so please don't waste my time by doing so. Run along, bring them back, and I'll sure to acknowledge your contribution to my fascinating paper. Okay. So you may not be able to put them in the familiar retreat at all. Right. Let's go in here. Let's go over here. Right. Okay. Let's see. Let's go over here. Okay. We still don't really have an ingredient. Could buy some bananas, I guess. And so what I think we do is buy one of these, buy one of these, buy one of these, buy one of these, one of these, and buy one of these. Then let's buy 20 of these and start with that. Because we know this guy is all about the chocolate. And so we want the familiarity to go up as much as possible, and We want to be at the fullness. Which one of these increases accuracy? Give him one of those too. So we need another sweetie pie. Okay. Now, we'll try a chocolate on this one, I guess. Didn't really love it. But we can go by one there. This guy, I think, likes evasion. Nope. Magical defense. Magical attack. Alright, so this one likes magical attack. So let's get evasion and magical defense and in that. Okay. One of those. Two of those, just to be safe. Two of those, actually. Let's buy another one of those. And then let's just buy 10 of these. Yep. And we are really just, I think, once again showing our the problem with these kinds of games, and that there would just be these ridiculous systems. Like, and you just never really know, like, how much time you can potentially waste. Oh, interestingly, I may be painted into a picture here. Painted into a corner because I have a growth limit of 10. Which may mean that unless I get the familiarity up, I can't do anything more anyways. Okay. We'll increase magical attack and see if he responds to that. No, he doesn't. So, defense. Accuracy. Evasion. Right. So then this guy needs defense and accuracy and then a bunch of evasions. Alright. Buy 2 of those. Buy 3 of these. And then buy 10 of these. I should never buy more than 10 of anything because you're just never going to use more than 10, come to think of it. Defense up by 1. Accuracy by 1. And then evasions. There's definitely an imbalance here in that you're going to have a bunch of money and you're either going to waste a lot of it on items, equipment, or you're going to start finding equipment and then not spend it on equipment, or you're going to... Does he like evasion too? Yes, he does. Good. So you may just end up spending a lot of money on treats, unless I want to go down the route of potentially getting more provisions, which we may be at that point where buying a few more sandwiches might make some sense, or magic increase might make more sense. If I get the familiarity up to the maximum, that's probably not going to reset our fullness. Okay, so he doesn't care about attack. Doesn't care about defense. Doesn't care about magical attack. Doesn't care about magic defense. He does care about accuracy. Okay. So defense, magical defense, and a bunch more accuracy. And then a bunch more evasion. And then we'll have to deal with this one, which we don't have a clue as to what he really likes. Okay, magic defense and evasion. We'll start with that. What could we really get? We could spend 500 on a net of phoenix feather, or we could potentially buy a bunch of iced coffee. I feel like what's going to happen is that we'll probably just have upgraded versions of everything. Yeah, that would be my suspicion, is that we'll just have upgraded versions of everything once we get to the next city. I'm gonna go ahead and get 6 of these. And then I'm gonna get 8 of these. But you really can only focus on this when you're inside of a city too. So it is just its own gameplay mechanic that you're just not going to have any real interaction with outside of let's see if I metamorphose this. It is finally metamorphosable, but I bet you can only metamorphosize things if you have the familiarity up higher than 1. That would kind of make sense. There might be a trick here also that I'm not figuring out, where you might be able to just have almost a full level and then get the familiarity up enough so that you could then level up multiple things after you go from 1 heart to 2 hearts of familiarity. Yeah, that might be the way things go. Well, I bet that's not the case. Honestly, I think what really you're supposed to do is you're supposed to just use the internet or use some kind of strategy guide to tell you specifically that this character well, he's not reacting to it's magic defense that he wants upgraded. Okay. So come back and buy some more. I'll buy about 5. And I guess this would be the best point to do this, because doing it now would let you go and do some of the other quests. Wow. We were about at an hour and a half when I last looked at the clock, and now we are at 2 hours. And we don't really have enough gold to buy anything. We're also in a different position now, because like the main story wants us to go south. There's something over here to the map that we need to do. There's something north to the map we need to do. We're supposed to be finding some kind of boneheads, but I'm not really seeing them marked on the map as a thing. I don't even know where the boneheads are. Yeah, oddly, there's just like no dots. Where's all the little blue dots that were popping up on the map? Seems to be gone. So we're gonna have to focus, I think, just on the side quest, because we don't want to get on a ship and leave this area without finishing the side quest. We have quite a few that are underway. We may very well have to go back to the first city, which it doesn't seem like there is a fast travel to the first city. It doesn't seem like we're going to do anything with Pieces of Heart for a while. We probably aren't going to make any more progress as far as the Wizard's Companion for a little bit while we're doing the side quest. We are, I suppose, getting some more of the creatures and familiars unlocked. You can see that there's like one creature here that's hidden, one creature here that's hidden, and one creature here that's hidden. And that seems to be pretty much it. And let's see, let's look at Mighty Might as an example. So you start with Mighty Might, or just Mighty, and then that evolved to Mighty Might, which apparently doesn't get a 3D version of its animation, and then that can split either to Dynamite or Maremite. One would be Pro Fire, negative water, the other would be pro water, negative fire. So there is kind of an argument for both. One is a star version, one is a moon version. So, yeah. Up until that point, Might and Mighty Might are storm and water, and star, well, it went from sun to star. It could go star again or moon. And I suspect as far as what they habitat and items they drop are unknown, because you just will not see dynamite and meramite in the actual game. Yep. This really limits the number of characters in the game. As far as wild monsters, this being the Guardian of the Woods, that may be the most wild monster, which may mean, as far as aquatic monsters, there's some other aquatic monster we're gonna have to fight. Yeah, it indicates there's probably only one monster here, and one monster here, and maybe one monster here left. So we may very well have only 2 more creatures that we fight as part of that creature dialogue, and everything else may just be fights against some other kind of thing that's not a creature. There's still plenty of tales and plenty of other pages in general to unlock, though. As far as the talking stone, we are still missing number 9, so there's definitely stuff still to learn. And the game will probably be tutorializing us all the way through. As far as the creature companion, we can see Mighty Might and Mighty Might are 13 and 14. Little Bighorn, oddly, number 1, which seems weird. We've seen all 3 variations of a Ruffian, and Gruffian. I don't suspect that there's another version of that, but maybe there is. So we may very well just end up fighting a lot of these characters and not actually collecting all of them. May just not be necessary. As far as habitats, either we're going to start scrolling down, or there aren't that many more. Yeah, and the geniuses are probably not necessary as an element. There's a lot of stuff here that feels like it's not necessary. I kind of wouldn't be surprised if we don't actually have to scroll down for the dangerous places. We've done this entire center island already. Then, as far as progress report goes, we're at 27% of the Wizard's Companion, 12% of the Creature's Compendium, which that does seem like there will be more information that unlocks, and 9% of the tasks completed. We still know that there's 3 more things you can do in the game overall, but it kind of does feel like there might be a scenario here where this is not going to take as long as it seems like it's going to. But I would heavily suspect that that is probably not the case. I bet we find ourselves spending another 15 to 30 hours playing this game just because it's going to make us grind more. I wouldn't be surprised if we see dungeons that are 4 or 5 times as big as what we've seen, or just 4 or 5 times as much characters that we have to fight to get to a boss. Anyways, this went surprisingly long at 2 hours. That's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.